Issue 192. After the first few panels are wasted on recap, and Scourge assumes that Sonic would have agreed to conquer the multiverse pointlessly with him, we see Eggman spying on them with cameras, and then Dimitri nags Eggman about he hasn't had the time or resources to build a new Badnik army to supplement the Dark Egg Legion. Dimitri is dismissed and says he doesn't want his people to be used carelessly, and Eggman says menacingly that he plans to use his people to the very last one. If he plans on putting them in the egg grapes, which I assume is what he means, then why didn't he do that right away? Then he shows Dimitri a red button and explains that he put explosives in the cybernetics he supplied them with. Because of course he did. He has to have some incentive to keep them working for him. Although I have to wonder why he didn't tell them about them afterwards so the explosives could work as an incentive better. Because as it stands, they're not really working as an incentive because they don't know about them. Dimitri is told to prepare for the next threat as he feels all resentful towards Eggman. And Sonic says that since neither of them want to see Freedom HQ destroyed, they need to move the fight out into the Great Wastes. Scourge, because he's rebellious against Sonic, arbitrarily refuses, and when Fiona asks if he wants his team to step in because she finally managed to find out what was going on, he snaps at her offended that he's told he can't handle it alone. Although considering what we've seen of this fight up to this point and how embarrassed he was being saved by Sonic, this was foreshadowed just fine. Clearly it was more him snapping for being all self-conscious and insecure about not winning yet, and he's desperate to prove himself by winning without any help. He's not really mad at her as much as he is mad at the whole situation, challenging his pride. Still, I wish we had less moments against Fiona like this, and more him actually acting like they're dating. I don't know. Then Sonic lampshades that Scourge is completely new at this, since the guy is totally genre-blind the way he's going about this, and Scourge tells him to get off his back, and then says that there aren't any Metal Sonics on his world, wanting to give him an excuse for him having trouble and therefore admitting that he is having trouble. So he's basically breaking him down a little. This naturally leads into him actually saying, "Yeah, so thanks for the save back there," and it's pretty sweet of him to actually thank him when he doesn't have to. And the way he phrases it is so him, as he tries to be as casual as possible to an awkward, forced extent, with the first two words being just there, trying to be nonchalant like it's no big deal. But then he says he won't return the favor, and lets Sonic get attacked by a Metal Sonic. Miles, who is observing the situation through a hole in the base, is told by Boomer that he's got that look again, even though Boomer is behind him and no angle to be able to see Miles' expression. And Miles' expression is pretty emotionless and hard to read. The only clue is the cocked eyebrow which has happened. Otherwise, he doesn't really look surprised. Boomer asks what's on his mind, and Miles says that it's a curiosity. And after saying what he can to look tough and menacing in front of his villain friends, he says, "I can't help but notice Sonic's selflessness. He is wholly committed to the greater good regardless of who is involved." And he says this as we see Sonic saving Scourge from Metal Sonic when he was just occupied with a different robot. I know this may sound weird, but I just can't imagine those lines of Miles being said without a tone of admiration. That kind of thing just can't be said in monotone. I think he respects him for his selflessness. I mean, this is certainly a novelty for Sonic as far as he's concerned. While Fiona is staring at Scene looking worried about Scourge still, showing compassion for the 11th time, Alicia tells Miles to be careful what he says because that has a twinge of treason in it, while she's looking at him with her arms crossed as if she'd morally disapprove of Scourge being betrayed. Why would she say he should be careful what he says when Scourge can't hear him? Then it's revealed why they're staying loyal to him. Alicia has a 1,000-yard stare looking traumatized, saying they don't want to cross Scourge, and Patch looks scared, saying his patch isn't just for show anymore. A good off-screen villain moment for Scourge. Although again, I really have to ask, if Scourge is so evil, why didn't he take his eye out years before this? Or kill him? Miles' friends are showing that they genuinely care about him because they're actually bothering to warn him not to get himself in trouble. Miles, wanting to put them at ease, lies through stating the truth, saying that he's merely observing that with Sonic present, it wouldn't take much to tip the scales of war in either direction, getting an idea of how to beat Scourge. In the Dark Legion's barracks, Dimitri, who's got an octopus body instead of a normal robot one because reasons, tells Leonda there's a bomb in all of her people now. Leonda, for some reason, insists that it's all his fault because he came to Eggman first. I guess because he gave her the idea unintentionally. And Dimitri points out that no, it's clearly her fault. Dimitri says that he'll think of something because Leonda's the only family he has left and he feels a duty to his people. Finally, Scourge admits that he and Sonic are getting whooped, ironic for him to say, And he tells Sonic that he has to think of something, lampshading that he has more experienced situations like this than he does. Sonic says the last time they got matched blow for blow like this, all he could do is bring in someone the robot wasn't designed to handle. Scourge reluctantly swallows his pride to call in his gang, with Sonic briefly lampshading Fiona that them fighting on the same side brings back memories, and Fiona reacting with dismissal that's once again not explained in the slightest. After, I think tractor beams from above got rid of the destroyed robot pieces, I think that's what happened anyways, Miles points out to Sonic that the two work rather well together, and Sonic, so casual about it that he doesn't even look back at him, agrees with him, thanking everyone. Wait, why doesn't Scourge hear what Miles is saying and react to it at all? I mean, he shouldn't be too far away from him, he shouldn't be out of earshot. Then as Scourge asks Sonic about his offer to join him with Fiona smiling for some reason, Sonic tells Scourge off, calling him sick for even thinking he'd consider the offer. Sonic leaves as Fiona and Scourge show affection to each other, smirking at Sonic, and then Elliot says that while he personally doesn't mind, he's not allowed to let Sonic blow the council off without consequences. Sonic, again showing his independent side that I admire, says that nobody's going to tell him what he can't do if he's in the right. He sounds very self-righteous at the end there, like a Knight Templar. You could have said that he thinks he's in the right, true or not. Elliot at least smiles as he says he doesn't understand what Sally saw in him, and Sally calls him thick-headed, saying that it has a sort of charm, with all three of them smiling in amusement because they're all good friends. Elliot explains that Sonic's punishment is to take the lead in the next mission. That's supposed to be a punishment? He lives for excitement and danger. He's taken to the science center, and we see new star posts in the lab, with Sally saying that they'll get karma against the evil twins. And when Sally tells Sonic that he's invading Anti-Mobius, Sonic smirks evilly, no different than Scourge would, even though Sally hasn't even told him what she means by that. In the next story, Scourge breaks into Sonic's house at night, as we see the crescent moon in the sky looking like it was split apart into 3 pieces, and somehow stayed that way without those pieces just collapsing into each other from the moon's own gravity. Scourge slyly greets Jules, calling him Dad, and says that he's here for a surprise fight with Sonic. Jules tells him that he almost died saving his son once. Scourge snarks, "You want a medal?" And Jules says that he's not afraid of Scourge at all. I'm not sure if that's wise, considering he has the spin dash, not to mention super speed. Jules says that because his world is full of heroes fighting against a single great evil, he just assumes the Anti-Mobius is full of cowards, doing their part to ruin their world. Coward because he thinks that's the exact logical opposite of hero, rather than just evil person. Then he tells Scourge that he thinks because he's not a hero, he's a coward too. I mean, I guess that would explain why Scourge didn't just go to another dimension and fight a Robotnik that's actually evil, instead of spending his life fighting people weaker than him pointlessly. Scourge doesn't live in a world that would make him have to get courage because there's no Robotnik. Scourge insists that because he conquered a planet that makes him not a coward, for some reason, even though he wouldn't need much courage to beat Alicia in a fight. Then when he's told he only brought about a different kind of ruination, Scourge talks as if he's wrong about that, even though I expect Scourge as a king and an evil twin to relish in bringing about ruination, and therefore gladly admit it, not self-righteously delude himself into thinking he's doing the right thing. And the closest thing we have to any sort of backstory for Scourge, we see his father, holding a scepter and cape while he was stuck holding a cape, looking miserable. His father looks pretty arrogant here, just lapping at praise. Scourge explains that on his world, instead of a great war, they had the great peace. His father was a part of that, and he says in tranquil fury that he just brought everyone together in one big group hug. So he conquered his planet too? Then we see fire around the castle in the background as Scourge says that 10 years later everything had stagnated and fallen apart. What does he mean? Technology arbitrarily stopped progressing? How could the world being ruled by his father cause stagnation? I really wish we got a little more elaboration on this backstory instead of just vagueness and read between the lines. Was Scourge part of a royal family and that's why his dad ruled the world? Or did his dad take over the world? In which case, why would they ever call it the Great Peace? Like, why would people be happy and fawning over him to make him smile like that? Scourge, while looking more demented than generically evil, says that his father is dead, implying that he killed him, which would explain why he's not running the world anymore while he's taking it over. And Jules is still being a badass by just calmly, resentfully reasoning with him from his armchair. Jules asks him if he's trying to shock him, and says, That falls short when the mighty world-conquering king has to sneak in during the middle of the night to get a leg up on my boy. Perfect way to prove his point, although honestly, I don't think it's cowardice that's his problem. It's an inferiority complex. Sure, he genuinely believes he's entitled to respect by being happy about everyone bowing to him, but he still takes Sonic way more seriously as a threat than his act of bravado and condescension leads on, and the fact that he thought he needed to do this proves that. If he really thought he could beat Sonic so easily, he would just do it, without trying to get an advantage even after he became more powerful with Master Emerald, and beat Sonic in a fight before. Scourge threatens Jules, once again not really bothering to engage in an actual conversation with him and just feebly falling back on death threats and intimidation, going with what he knows. This is kind of pathetic actually. Jules tells him that he was on the front lines of the Great War and won't go down quietly, as Scourge is alarmed and surprised at him just getting up unintimidated by him. Still looking all alarmed, he shrinks back a little like he's a kid flinching his abusive father, as Jules basically tells him that if something did happen to him, Sonic would be very upset with him. Or rather, absolutely enraged with him. He proves that he does take Sonic seriously as a threat and recognizes his capabilities once again, as he looks terrified, sweating while backing up against the window, not scared of Jules, but Sonic. That makes a lot more sense. It especially makes sense since he honestly offered Sonic to rule a multiverse with him as an unstoppable king. He called Sonic unstoppable, so he really doesn't get it that Sonic's a hero and therefore wouldn't kill him. Well, maybe he would if he did that. I mean, Sonic almost murdered a soldier who he thought killed Uncle Chuck, but even then, he didn't do it because his friends and family nagged him out of it. Also, I fucking hate how the art has Scourge's eyeballs morphed to look scared instead of just having his eyelids show the emotion. It's a terrible, terrible art style that I thought was left behind at the start of the comic. It takes me out of it. Then Scourge turns away with tears in his eyes, although it's ruined by the art, making it not really have the emotional impact it should. And he tells Jules that he's just saying a bunch of empty words, and that he's no different from his father after all. Empty words? He clearly looked scared earlier, so it's not like he knows Sonic wouldn't kill him. So he's not saying Jules was making an empty threat. Instead, I guess he's saying that Jules didn't attack him, not even grab him by the neck. He just said stuff to him, but didn't do anything. That might imply that the anti-Jules also just said stuff, either because he was verbally abusive, not physically, making me wonder why he's so scared of Jules that easily, or because his father might have claimed to love him, but never did anything to prove it, and really was abusive, explaining why he's shrinking back like this. Again, there's no context, no elaboration on this. Scourge's dad neglected him, apparently, but I have to say apparently, and that's a big problem. This is the only issue, as far as I know, that tries to give Sonic the freaking Hedgehog's evil twin an explanation for why he turned out the way he is. And the story ends with Jules looking nervous with his hand against the window, as if he's sympathetic to Scourge a little, and lying that he wasn't talking to anybody to avoid to anybody. He doesn't want to worry anyone. That'd be exactly what Scourge wanted. This issue is by Ian Flynn and involves the Metal Scourge and Sonic fight being resolved when, after some great reluctance on Scourge's part, he eventually admits that the fight isn't working for him alone and he calls his gang over, resolving it really quickly because of sheer numbers, I guess. Never mind that Metal Sonic Metal Scourge would logically have super speed and be more than capable of defeating people without super speed. They're all just defeated in one panel. Before this happens, Miles comments on the fact that Sonic would even help an enemy of his for the greater good. I'm not sure why he's saying that him saving Scourge at that moment was making Sonic wholly committed to the greater good, though. There was no indication that him saving him was a good thing to do. But still, he shows respect for Sonic, and admits they work surprisingly well together. Much better than Scourge with Sonic, who insisted on rebelling against him every step of the way. And all that is pretty novel for an evil twin. So of course he's only gonna team up with him one time in a brief alliance, and then never be seen again after the story arc is done. That's taking advantage of plot threads, right? I also like that in addition to Fiona showing compassion, worrying about Scourge, Miles' friends were all worried about him, discouraging him from betraying Scourge when they didn't actually have to. We keep getting moments like this implying the evil twins are genuinely friends, being polite to each other, caring about each other, and Boomer knowing Miles well enough to tell he's got something on his mind, even with looking at him from behind and he looks emotionless. But they're so small and subtle and we only saw them by this point. And the second story reveals more why Scourge turned out the way he did. His father ruled the world while he was stuck holding the cape, like a slave. So no wonder he turned rebellious. I mean, him choosing to have such a long cape instead of just having a shorter one implies that he cares so much about looking fancy and like royal and stuff, that he's so arrogant in that sense, that he'd rather have his son hold the cape up so that it won't get dirty than just have a shorter cape. It's also implied his father was neglectful, only pretending to love him, saying empty words while doing nothing to prove it, not being a man of action by any means, as he actually cries, saying that Jules and his father are both a man of empty words. But all this is just implied, nothing's ever elaborated on, so you can't say anything without feeling like you're reading too deep into it. We never see Scourge's father abuse him in any sort of way, it's just implied. Scourge's rantings and ravings here didn't really make any sense, although his expressions make him look demented, so maybe him being completely delusional was intentional. Jules was really a badass here, just calmly and resentfully breaking him by talking without even trying to fight, and be gutsy enough to call Scourge the Hedgehog a coward because he's not a hero, even though he's never really had a villain to fight to begin with. But considering he could have zone hopped to another dimension to find a villain to fight if he wanted to, maybe Jules is right, but it's not fear that's his problem, it's an inferiority complex. A fear that Sonic really is better than him. I mean, if he was a coward, he wouldn't be gutsy enough to break the law constantly. He proves he does acknowledge Sonic is a capable threat to him and wouldn't want to get him enraged with him by hurting his father, showing a level of depth to him that proves there's more to him beneath the mask. And this kind of backstory and elaboration on him is never done again. It's a shame. His backstory is so vague we can only assume his father took over the world and neglected him, and there's no mention at all of his mother, or even an Uncle Chuck, infuriatingly enough. Wouldn't he, become just like Robotnik if he was evil? Maybe if he had at least a loving uncle like Sonic did, he wouldn't be so rebellious against authority in general. Who knows? That's what can be said about this whole story. Who knows?